But I'm super glad to be here, guys. And I really hope that when all of us walk out of this room today, we actually feel that we have learned something new. We met some interesting people. We've had some facts and data that we can take back to our workplaces and actually have a better idea of what the next step is for whoever you are in this room regarding AI and using it. I want this session to be interactive. So it's not just me talking. If you have an idea, you can pop up your hand at any point. Hung, feel free to jump the mic, ask me a question. It doesn't have to go slide by slide. I really want it to kind of be more of a feeling like we're sitting together at a dinner table just having a conversation. That being said, I'm going to be covering a ton of interesting things. One of the things, and primary focus is just AI in HR, automation. How can you do it? How to approach it? Why it matters? And all the key questions that come up. And I'm going to start with just these super simple questions that happen at all these events, and you've probably heard some of these before, but just to get a little bit of feeling in the room, I'm going to do this a couple of times during the talk, so you'll get a feel for how this works. And the first question, just keep your hand in the air if this applies to you. Don't take it down unless the next question doesn't follow. So simple one, how often do you use AI for work? So just how many of you use it once a month or more often? Just hands in the air. So basically, almost everyone in the room. Okay, once a week or more. Okay, once a day or more. Multiple times a day. Okay, for pretty much everything you use AI. Okay, so this room is pretty active. Now, it's pretty interesting when I ask this question and take a look at the results. Around 50% of people are using AI for work multiple times per day. Of all the people that are attending these webinars and stuff that we've been doing, been asking these polls about, how many times do you do this? About 50%, multiple times a day. And that's like 75%, 80% that use it daily or multiple times a day. Similar to this crowd, actually, a little bit higher percentage in here. So that's where we're at. 10% of humankind are now using just ChatGPT on a weekly, daily basis, and the usage is going up and up and up by all the people who are there. So we're all familiar with it. Now, what are the HR teams like? What are they actually doing here? Like, they're mostly just experimenting. Like, they haven't gotten started in the org, but there's kind of like just exploring these use cases. They're experimenting with all these point tools. OpenAI just published a report, I think it was last week. It was kind of surprising. Like, what are people actually using AI for? And they're just kind of asking it helping questions in their personal lives. They're helping it to write a little bit better, like make the spelling okay here and there. And there are some interesting shifts happening related to what Perry was saying, which is that, like, Sam Altman was saying this in an interview, CEO of OpenAI, that like people are now starting to, because OpenAI, ChatGPT, the answers that they bring often has hyphens. So now people are starting to write a lot more with hyphens in it. So it's kind of like the AI is teaching people to do things differently. Whether that's a good thing or bad thing is something of interest, but it's a change that is occurring and is happening. And what I think, when I look at these, like what people are already doing, my view is that there are only four ways in which you can actually embrace AI. And it doesn't mean whether if you do one way, you don't do the other way. Like, it's a mixture of these four ways that especially refers to HR. And I'm going to walk over just one of these paths and show you some real examples of what I mean by that. So, of course, there's chat, right? Like all these chat-based products, you have like the ChatGPT and Claude, and you have Gemini, and you have DeepSeek, and you have, like, there's about 6 or 7 models that most people in the world use. Most of them use these top 3, Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT being the biggest one. And you kind of ask it a question, and it brings you whatever answer. Some people are getting more advanced. They're putting, like, knowledge vaults about who they are and what they want, and they kind of, bringing attachments. They're doing, like, API calls with all sorts of tools, so it, gets better responses. And I'll show you some of those examples a little bit later of what that means. But this is basically what everyone in this room seems to have, uses multiple times a day, and most of the world is using. The second one is just products that are out there that you're buying. And I'm sure, just like a product where you have kind of added AI to do a certain thing is becoming the norm now. And I'm pretty sure most of you are already using a bunch of those products today. And we're seeing this in the workforce for a lot of different verticals. For example, whenever you do a meeting, like it's being recorded, and the recording is changing it into a transcripted text, and then that transcripted text is turned into a summary, and you can ask it questions. You might do 20 meetings with a client, and you can ask, what have we talked about with this client? You can do 3,000 meetings with 300 clients, and you can ask them, how are we doing as an org? Are we asking the right questions? Like, these are things you can already do, and most orgs are doing. And just going to check with these hands of applause things, like how many people in this room use some sort of a meeting recorder or audio recorder that transcripts their audio. So it's like hands of applause. It looks like half of the room in here is already using this kind of tech, whether it's Fathom or other tools that are out there, just kind of for demonstration purposes. And then you have these other like ways of adding AI into products. Like I use an email client called Superhuman. So whenever we're hiring, somebody sends us an email and they somehow find my email or somebody's in our team and they're asking like, hey, something about the job. Like my email automatically scans this and it automatically figures out that that is the subject and it automatically forwards it to the hiring manager that's kind of on that job to just say forward it to him and just saying like, thanks for the note. I'll make sure the team sees this and gets back to you and forwards it to the right people. It's just fully automated, right? And this is the kind of stuff you can do now. There's a ton of clients out there doing this. Some clients are now offering like never use email again. It just automatically, takes a look at what you have there and follows your instructions and kind of removes that barrier. But most are just using it to augment stuff. Like you get an email, it automatically kind of shortens it or shows you something. So these are examples of just generalistic products that you can use and buy, and there's thousands of them out there. And pretty much every product in the world will soon have AI, if it doesn't have it already, empowering and amplifying whatever it is that it does. And I actually think we will stop talking about AI as like, oh, I want to buy an HR AI system, or I want to buy an HR ATS system. You'll just say, I want a system that does this and solves this problem. You expect it to have AI and run whatever it does in a smart way with AI embedded in the right place. Now, then there's the third option, and this is the build from scratch option. And I don't know, I'm pretty interesting about this. Has anyone in here, just show of hands, how many people in here have actually programmed or built something with AI tools that they had never built before? Just kind of hands up in the air here. Okay, so maybe like 20% in the room or so. So this company here, Lovable, how many people have heard about this company? Again, okay, maybe half. This is the fastest growing software startup in the world. You can basically go into this website. You can say, hey, build me a personal website, and just build a chatbot where you can talk about anything. And I actually tried this, and I built my own personal website. You can go on the website, you can ask me anything. It's a personal avatar. We'll answer whatever is out there. And I didn't have to do any coding at all. I'm just asking like a chatbot to build me and just kind of, asking it to do stuff and, this logo, smaller, whatever. And it's amazing how many interesting things you can build there. And this company has grown from, I think it was launched last year, in 8 months to something like 100 million in annual recurring revenue over an incredible short amount of time. And what's interesting about this, and this kind of comes to the theme later on, I was lucky enough to actually meet with Anton earlier this month, who's the CEO of Lovable. We met in Copenhagen, where he was giving a talk about why this company is interesting and what they're working on. And I think the big reason why Lovable is so successful in other AI products, and I'll come to this later on, is because they lowered the threshold. So the threshold of building products used to be only for people who were technical, who were IT, who were programmers. And you lowered the threshold, so instead of that being the case, you opened up, if you're going to think of this as a pyramid, you lowered the bar. And when you did that, millions of people are now able to do stuff that they weren't able to do before because the technology didn't allow them to do that. And I think that is actually the big revolution in almost every AI product that is out there. It's allowing you to do stuff that you couldn't do before. And that requires people to think differently, because you can't think, how am I going to do exactly what I did before exactly the same way? You're going to have to think, whoa. I used to talk to these guys to get me to help do this task. But wait, I can do that myself now because I have these tools and tech capabilities. And that kind of brings me to that fourth pillar, which are what I call workflow builders. You can have, and there's many of them out there, but you can find a workflow builder that maps up your own workflow, take responsibility for what it is, govern it, and control what happens if this happens around your own workplace. And so it's similar from building a product from scratch, but it kind of comes with all of these built-in capabilities like security and other things. You can kind of build it for different things in your org. And these are, in my mind, the four options you have. You're going to go with chat. Everyone in here is doing that. That's the norm of the world. You're going to buy a ton of products. I think our company is subscribed to something like 40 or 50 products, right, that we use for different types of things within the org. Some are generalistic across, others are for certain verticals. I think we're running 40,000 automations every single month. like 40,000. It is insane. And when you get to the point where you're doing that, you just see things flow automatically, and they're working the same way or better than what people would have done that were doing that type of work, you start to be able to do other things that are more valuable. In our case, it certainly hasn't been the results of letting people go, but to actually work on the more better stuff that's interesting. And so what are these things actually, exactly? If you just look at HR, sure, you have the chat products. In the product side, of course, like you have an HR product, you have a payroll, you have an ATS, you have performance, LMS, time and attendance. All of these should have some AI capabilities, and they're going to be adding them if they don't have them already, and you might not like the one you have, you could buy a new one. You could amplify it by connecting whatever you have with a workflow builder. So if you don't like your ERP or something that's clunky, you can kind of go, wait, can we just, and you can't throw it out, which is like a common use case for most people in HR. It's just, for some reason, you can never throw it out. And I don't know a single person that loves their ERP, whatever system you have there. But you can like make a lot of things that are a lot better by just kind of thinking, could we just change this part in it and connect it with a workflow builder and make that happen? You can build from scratch. There's a ton of tools there. I'm actually going to show you a couple of examples of how you can do that and what I mean. And then you have workflow builders. We belong in that category as a workflow builder, and I'll show you some examples of what we're doing and why that might be a fit or not. Our workflows are only intended for people processes. It's a workflow where you build, where you can put people through the process. And our vision is very simple. It's to make it the most simple workflow builder in the world to use, because I believe that if we're able to do that, we can lower the threshold and we can get more people to build processes than ever before. There are a ton of workflow builders out there. If you just Google something, you'll find like a ton of them. Most of them are pretty technical. I don't know if you've, like companies like N8N, I think it literally says on their title of the website, like technical workflow builder. And you can build incredible things with these tools. And sometimes you mix them together, sometimes you build on your own. But whatever you choose, like these, I would kind of break it down into these categories and think, okay, what's the right pick for me for whatever it is that you're trying to build and do? Let me show you some examples. This is a tool called Gamma. And it's like you're maybe doing an employee handbook. And you just say, hey, create a standard handbook here. In this case, I just wrote, I'm an Icelandic company, 1,000 employees. And it will just kind of start with the same stuff that it does when you're doing ChatGPT or something. Like, we'll kind of break that down. But then it has added these extra capabilities. In this case, it's giving you that ability of like picking the look and feel of the presentation. Perry wants to up his game in design or something. He can throw that deck in, and he'll see something beautiful come out really quickly. And it could come in some themes that this app has, or you can just add your own company colors or whatever that is. So again, think about that change. Like, you're not a designer, but you can all of a sudden build beautiful creations on your own. And why would you send this to the designer in the company and ask them to do it if you can do it on your own? You have that agency of being in control. If you don't like something, just prompt it and we'll make it better. Videos. We've been trying to work with this theme, which my team is always telling me is a terrible theme, but it's using like this HR dinosaur and a mix with humans. So I try to put this prompt in here, which is a video of an HR manager that looks like a dinosaur. He's struggling with employee requests, and then he sees the 50skills logo, and this shiny light appears. So I just put in this prompt. This is the only thing I did, by the way. I didn't prompt it 20 times. And this is the result that it brings out, right? It has this dinosaur here, struggling, and sees the logo. And this is like a 3-second clip or something. But I can continue with this character and make it do more stuff. Again, I don't know how to make videos. I have no idea how to do that. But this is giving me agency of doing something that I wasn't able to do before. And that is the incredible part of technology that AI can actually amplify us to do when you buy it for a certain purpose, right? So this is a tool for videos, another tool for creating documents, another tool for workflows, whatever it is that makes sense for you. And this is, again, the big hypothesis. You make it less complex, more people will use it. And I think that will increase the agency for everyone. And so if you look at a pyramid, again, technical skills required to build stuff. Top of that pyramid, you have the nerds, the tech and IT that are supposed to do it. And historically, this has been the case. For all of us in this room, just a couple of years ago, if we wanted to build something, you would need to book a meeting. If you're not a programmer or a very technical, tech-savvy super person, you would need to book a meeting with the tech team, sit down, explain to them what you want to do, and they would tell you, no, we're busy. There's something else in the core ops, and they would kind of build their own arguments for it, and there might be even a debate with that team and like the C-suite about if you actually should get budget or not to do it. And if you actually are able to break through and get that budget and build it, what will happen is that you'll get something that wasn't exactly what you thought it was. And when that happens, you want to change it, it goes through that same circle. That is a very, very common stories that I've heard hundreds of times from people who are trying to get stuff done. With tech that you make easier to use, you're going to create something that some people call the super worker, like Josh Bersin has talked about this, the modern worker, whatever the name is. More people, maybe not everybody, but a lot more people will be able to do stuff on their own than ever before. And I think I listed out 3 reasons, and I'm going to show you some demos about this, but 3 reasons why leaders should be embracing this. Why should we do this? And this is probably the most common question. The people I meet, they're not in a place where they're picking the tools. They're in a place where they are trying to figure out, I want to do AI, I want to do it more in my org, I'm not really sure how I should do it, I want to know what everyone else is doing, I want to get examples and see some real stuff here, and then I want to take that back and show the ROI, and they're not in a place where they've already pinned down, these are the 2 or 3 things, and they're the ones that work and do that. They're most of them in that first phase. But the 3 reasons that I put out is the obvious one is the productivity gains. And just think about it in the most simplistic way. If you have a motorboat, you don't want to take up the oars again. And that's literally what's happening. You're building a conveyor belt that can do the work again and again and again and again at the same quality at a much lower price. And the companies and orgs that will do this, they will win their competitors. It's obvious. It would be so much cheaper and effective to do everything they do. And so that is the #1 reason why people are thinking about this. And every single business owner, I'm a business owner, I've been working with startups for 20 years, I've invested in companies, I've helped them out, I've built them out. This is what people want. Every single owner of every company, this is one of the big priorities. Of course they want their employees to be happy and their customers to be happy, and think about that in a long-term version. But productivity, about how they do stuff, is gonna basically tell if the company survives or not, if it's an interesting company that gets funded and invested and profitable. That's the key thing. And there's a lot of low-hanging fruits here. You don't need to reinvent the entire org. We have companies that they did stock option agreements for thousands of employees. It's hundreds of hours saved just by automating it, right? There are companies that are, instead of employee benefit applications, we call this the old way was you did stuff turn-based. So somebody would tell you, hey, does the company have employee benefits? Who do I talk with? Then they learn about that. Then they send in some sort of an application about getting these benefits. Then somebody needs to review it. Then you need to get that stamped, and maybe somebody else needs to review it and get that stamped, and then it moves forward. This can happen in real time, any type of employee request. And just automating it and describing what would an AI need, what info would an AI need to have to make a decision on this? It's super basic. Onboarding, thousands of steps, thousands of different things, same part. And I'll show you some examples of this later on as well. Second part, AI is transforming the workplace, right? So every single person in the world, for most of their life, they work somewhere, right? They work at a workplace. That's where they get their salary. And they want to be at a workplace that allows them to use modern tech, that allows them to develop themselves and get the skills they need to survive and thrive for years and decades to come. And HR is the entity that has access to all of these people, unlike any other department. And so it's the responsibility of HR to lead that transformation and tell people, go out there, be brave, try things out, make experiments, see what works, what doesn't work, make it happen. Of course, within a mandate of not breaking laws or going over any steps, but that is the obligation of HR, to really try and make that happen and create an incredible experience for the people that work in your company. And it's in the old days, you used to have, again, I'm always being told, don't use the dinosaur picture. But it used to be just administrative personnel work, right? That was the role of HR. And it has changed into becoming a strategic, tech-savvy person that is aware of newest technologies, that is making sure that their employees have the best tools available to do the best jobs, that they can do with everything that's out there. That is the job, to make all of your employees incredible. And you do that by allowing them to make experiments and try and fail and learn and do more of what we learned. Amazon did this experiment, I think it was a couple of years ago, where they introduced the ban of saying no unless you write 2 pages of reasoning and publish it publicly to the entire company. And the reason why they did that is because it's so much easier for a manager to say no to new ideas and criticize those ideas than to embrace them and put them into play. And that's why Amazon has stuff like video. That's why they have an online storage called AWS. That's one of the biggest growing, fastest cloud companies in the world, which makes no sense for us. Like, the manager that heard that idea in the beginning is like, that makes no sense. We're selling stuff online. Why would we go for online storage, right? So again, embracing these ideas and allowing them to happen. And third part, the employee expectation is shifting, right? If you are a 20-something-year-old, you're graduating, and you're joining a company, and you see how things actually are at the workplace, you are terrified. Like, it is not the experience you're expecting. You are using this every single day, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or whatever. You expect to put in whatever you want in there, and you want it to know the answer. And if you're working in a workplace, you're working in sales, you want it to know everything about the stuff you do in sales. If you're working in HR, you want it to know everything you're doing in HR. The same for every single category. And so I'm going to show you some examples of how teams can take that forward. But just with these 3 buckets here, as kind of what are the good teams doing, the ones that are really doing it right, who are really succeeding. They're investing in their people. They're trusting them to do the jobs that are there. They're really encouraging them to experiment and fail. Like, the more failures you do, the better, of course, within a certain window. And then, and this is sort of important, that a lot of people are failing on, it's building what's called the AI foundation. If you ask an AI, summarize my employer turnover, it won't know the answer, because it doesn't have access to your data, it doesn't have access to resources that you're giving it access to, it doesn't have access to your chat history, knowing whatever's there. It can't answer you any more than I could, because I'm not working in your company. I have no information about that. If you, however, put your data up in the right way, you build an AI foundation where the right people have access to the right tools and information, you'll get an answer like this. Oh, great. Seconds later, it was down 14%. It was closer to our 5% reduction goal. The highest attrition was in customer support. You'll get it in seconds. You can double ask questions, and everyone will just be much better at doing whatever it is that they do because they have access to it. Doesn't mean you're putting PII data into any of this, doesn't mean that you're doing anything strange with it, but this is the difference of doing it right and wrong and how you can kind of set it up the right way. So with that in mind, I'm going to show you a couple of demos of some real stuff that might be interesting. And before I turn on the video, I actually want to try this one thing live here. I want to see if you can actually, I think it's here, if you can scan this QR code really quickly, just everyone in the room. I'm going to show you one simple experiment. You can, whoever, you don't all have to do it, but just experiment. You'll see a form when you scan this thing. And if you fill this form out, what's going to happen is that it's going to ask you to put in, like, tell a fun fact about you, and your email or your phone number or both. If you fill it out, an AI agent is going to create a joke and send it back to you in seconds, right in front of you. So I just dare you, whoever's in the room, just try to fill it out, and you'll see the results live on the screen whenever you do it. And just after you do that, I'm going to show you what's happening here. So here we have the first one coming in. Let's just hide the phone numbers here. Got it. Okay. Cian is coming in. Kristjan, you can kind of see what's going on. And as you go along, you'll see the list filling up here, and I'll show you what's going on. So let's just pick Kristjan here, for example. So let's take a look at what happened, and then I'll show you the rest of the results. You filled out a form here, right? There's a simple form that you all saw in the QR code. Seconds later, an AI agent ran a prompt. Like, this is a similar prompt that you could have put in a ChatGPT or whatever. Created a joke, and if you had your phone number, it sent you a text message. If you had just your email, it would send you the joke in email. It's a terrible joke, I think. Why don't we invite a computer to Indian feast, Kristjan, because it can't handle too many bytes of spicy data. So Kristjan loves spicy food, so that's the reason why this is coming up. Anyway, I'll show you in a second what I mean by this and why it's interesting. And I'm going to show you this video first of how you can introduce this new tech to your employees. So this is a video we just made where you can basically go into any chat tool you have. You can ask it any question. And when you ask it the question, it will know how to respond. In this case, it's asking, can you help me claim my gym membership, right? If you have a gym membership, somebody heard about it, oh, can you help me claim mine? It will know immediately, yeah, sure. You just get it reimbursed here. We just need the amount and a receipt so we can check if it's okay or not. That's a response that's been configured to do. So you just upload your receipt, you put in whatever amount it was. This is like $1,000 for, it's a pretty expensive annual probably. But you put that in, and seconds later, just like you did with that form you just filled out, right? Seconds later, you'll see the people that filled it out in the system. And if I continue here, you'll, oh, one sec here. You'll see the people filling it out in a system. You can click at any of them, and you can see exactly what's happened. Like, is this receipt legitimate? Is it approved? Or if it's legitimate, AI will review it. It will approve it if it's still legitimate. It won't approve it if it's not. And this is all happening in the back end. Like, Ethan doesn't have access to this. You, as a manager, controller, governor, whatever, you can do that. And the experience that Ethan has is just that he filled it out with his chatbot, and he gets an email approved seconds later in his inbox, right? And this is for anything, right? You just think about, like, how can you map up whatever it is that you do at work and make sure that all the people at work there, if they need it, they can just ask about it and make sure they get the right answer, and make sure if the answer is something that requires an input or approval or whatever, you put that in. So it's sort of like a mixture of an employee handbook and whatever activities actually take place. And that's a huge productivity time saver, right? There's a lot of ways you can go into a spreadsheet and find some ROI that makes sense for that. And so how does this look like in reality? Well, let me just show you that part of the product live right now. So this is a product that we built that we call Journeys. It's a place where you can go and map up all of your processes. You can map them up, you can build them. You can add AI if you want. You don't have to have AI, but you can add these AI agents wherever you want in the system. And you can decide how they work, when they work, what they do when something triggers. So if we just take a look at this health benefits one that we just applied, we have here, I know it's far away and you can't see the screen properly, but it's like you have a couple of people that have filled this out, right? Let's just take a look at Braille. He's here in the room. So he filled out this form, right? And he had filled out a form or talked to a chatbot. You can do both. It works the same way. If you fill out the form, you talk with a chatbot, it does the same thing. It knows that it's a gym membership. It's not a flu vaccination, or it's not a treatment of some sort, which seems to be part of this workflow. It's a gym membership. And so the AI agent literally checks the receipt, runs this prompt here, comes to a conclusion, says it's valid, the reason why it's valid, and sends him an email, sends management an email, lets the people in finance know that they can pay the money back. You could also take it a step further and literally have the system pay the person back automatically, which is kind of like the step, you know, if you want to take things further. But just like Perry said, like, you kind of go with version 1 and then version 1.1, whatever it is. You don't have to do it fully automated, right? There could be an employee request that comes in, any type of employee request. You can put all of these, for example, here, let's just say on a portal. You have here like all of your employee requests possibly. You put them on a portal. You tell people just go to the portal or just talk with a chatbot, whatever works best for you. And they fill something out. And when they fill it out, it could be any sort of like parental leave, whatever it is. Or it could be a request of getting equipment. Now, instead of the AI making a decision on it, the AI can also come up with a suggestion on what it would do. It will send you to you as an HR manager. You can just go, yeah, that makes sense. I'll approve for that. And then that happens 10 times, and you always approve. If you don't approve, you can tell it the reason why you don't approve, and it can learn, it can get better. But if you're always getting the same results as the AI 100 times in a row or 1,000 times in a row, you're getting to a point where you go, maybe we should just audit this every month, right? And so you don't have to take it like big digital transformation, AI, everything is automated day one. You can just go, let's just take one thing and automate it and see what happens. And if you really like it, you can do the next thing. So there's a lot of ways you can do it with kind of baby steps at a time, and also making sure all the stakeholders feel comfortable with what they are seeing. Now, if I come back to the AI joke now, just a second here, you see now that we had this joke up and running here. And I can now see that we have 25 people in the room have already filled it out. Most of you have probably gotten a joke in an email or a text message back to you already, right? Now, this could have been, I'm just going to kind of open up a random here, see Sean here. You can kind of see, where's Sean in the room? Can I see that? Yeah, okay, yeah. It's two in the room, okay. So you can kind of see here, what went in here? Sean said she's a rugby fan living near Windsor and working in talent acquisition. And so the joke knows that, because the AI agent, when it does it, creates a joke here and sends it back in an email to her. Why was the rugby fan so good at TA? They never missed a conversion. Actually, quite a good one. Lucky for me here. So all of the standard emails and text messages that you get, or your candidates or your people get everywhere, they don't have to be, hey, first name, welcome to this. You can give an AI an input of who they are, what they do. You can have it search up where they work and make everything truly personalized with messages if you could just connect it in this type of way. And that's really empowering in terms of experiences in what you do. And if I kind of go here and just show you some other things that might be interesting. So just to kind of summarize our end and then some of the findings for our customers. So basically, this is our tool. It's kind of split into two phases. You can build any process you want. You can have it trigger with a form or not, just manually added, or in any system, right? You can put it on a portal, so you can share that portal with your employees. And it connects with anything you can think of. Like it kind of does what you want it to do. But this is really the part that's interesting. Anything you've built there, you can connect that to this. And you can configure it to this in a way that, for example, if you ask a chatbot like this, going on parental leave, how does the AI know if it's an employee request or if it's somebody going on parental leave? Like this is something that happens when you scale. Like if it's 30 things, sometimes they overlap. And it kind of takes into consideration the ability of actually configuring that part, like making sure you kind of have control of it and govern your own stuff, which is huge. The other thing, which we haven't announced but is coming pretty soon, is the ability to just prompt and build your own workflows. So you can go into the system, you can write it up and kind of configure it. But very soon we have these prototypes ready actually. You can show some of you later on if you want to see it, where you can just go and say whatever you want. Build me an onboarding process for an aviation company for this, whatever. And it will just map it up how it looks like. And you'll say, I don't really know, like we have these complex systems that does this, and it will just update it. And that is kind of where we're heading for any type of product and any type of vertical, just like you saw with the videos, just like you saw with the designs, like that's how a lot of things will get built. So even if you're not comfortable technically right now, it's going to get so much easier moving forward for everybody. And just if we think about AI, if we think about HR is responsible for so many things, right? Like it's sort of like everything we haven't figured out who's responsible, just throw that to HR. And so you kind of have like your onboarding people, your offboarding people, you're getting thrown out these ERPs and HRISs that have a ton of functionality that does a ton of things, and you're hundreds of other things. And you could buy a tool for every single one of these that might be like vertically perfect for doing it. And I've certainly done that in some cases. But for everything else, it's also nice to be able to like have something that can just work across the board for anything and really make and amplify the work you do much, much better. And so, the top questions always, people kind of see this, they go, okay, great, but I would love to hear what processes you would like to automate. So what comes to mind in this room? I'll actually show you what our customers are doing and show you real examples. But like, is there anyone in here that could share what is it that you guys would like to automate at your work? What's the most time consuming? There's two hands over there. If I can.
So I work in talent acquisition and operations, and one of the obvious things is like you have 400 different stakeholders and they all want differently be managed. So usually you'll try to pull data, and either way that the system does it, you have to manually plug in who you're collecting it for, what department, those kind of things. But in an ideal world, we'd be like, can anyone just go to the dashboard and say, how many people did we hire at what stage, and you just give me all the information, right? That kind of stuff. There's like, click of a button. Should happen with AI. Doesn't in any system so far.
And I love that. Did you all hear what she said? I love that idea. And I think the best ideas come from, like you're mentioning, you're in a 400 people company or something. Like what you're dealing with is different from somebody in a 5,000 people company or 40 people company, right? The problem exists for that. So that the way you described it, that's exactly what you should be able to do. Like you can describe exactly how you want it to be in a perfect world, how you're doing it today, and then kind of how do you change that? What else? What else do you guys have? Any other problems? Anything anyone wants to share in the room? I had another hand in the air just a second ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Kim. I'm a fractional CPO. I'm working on performance review frameworks, so topical, because everyone needs salary, etc. So confidentiality is a big thing. Obviously, people get scared. There's this fearful thing. And so it's collecting the data and real feedback, like honest feedback. And I'm doing it at the moment, and we thought, oh, we could use AI to record the notes of the meeting. That's great. But then, so we're quite likely to finish up, but then if it goes to the AI, everyone's going to know, like, you know, about the company, about but that's something. And also 360 feedback is a thing that...
Is you're wondering how you do it because people are afraid of the recordings for stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah. And I get it. I wouldn't say everything on a recorded interview or a recorded session. Like you want to be able to have private conversations that are not recorded, and you want to be able to have conversations that are recorded for note taking and things like that. Yeah, I mean, so what I would think there is, it's also like AI, like using AI doesn't mean that AI is being used for every single step of the process everywhere. There are parts of a process where you shouldn't be, there are parts of a process where you don't want to have something recorded. You can have that manual step of somebody meeting in person and doing that deep human connection. You can have, after that meeting, someone write down notes about what occurred, and that will kind of continue with the process. So you need to do that mixture of what makes sense where. I know it's nice that if an AI would just kind of turn on a camera and a mic and just say what's on your mind, but like the reality is I don't think most people are ready for that kind of stuff because they don't feel comfortable about it. Some are maybe, but this is the kind of stuff that is also challenging, like making sure you decide where are you using tech for it, where doesn't it belong, and you know what goes in where. Some of the examples for our customers, this is real data. This is not some survey or something. This is actual data from our customers about hundreds of thousands of executions of different processes. Most of them are using it for onboarding. They're also using it for contracting, offboarding, employee notifications. They're using it for event registrations. So people are like building internal and external events, having people sign up for it. They're employee requests, CV screening. Somebody applies for a job. You want to know the score. Crossboarding, moving positions, gifts. And this part is the part that I like the best. We weren't able to categorize the rest because the reality is each and every one of us are struggling with different types of things that just doesn't really copy-paste across the orgs. And we want to be able to go into a tool and just map up what that is and how it works and why it works. Perry was saying earlier that there's so much information in people's heads. Like, you can literally see it when you look at this expanded, what people are doing at work and how they're doing it and how it's saving them time. And that is huge. And this applies to like an onboarding, like both for the new hires and seasonal hires and contractors and temps. There's like different ways you onboard and offboard people depending on what type of people they are. And AI can be used as part of this process, optionally, where it makes sense. You can have an AI allocate the buddy they should meet at the company based on inputs. You can have an AI validate if a photo is good enough for whatever it is that happens. You know, you can have it validate user input validation, exit reports, personalized messaging, attendee summaries, on and on, CV screening. There's like endless things. But the reality is we don't know what everybody wants to use it for. I'm going to take one example. This gentleman is a model that we worked with earlier this year, so he's kind of the face of the company right now. He actually had a full mustache, and he shaved off everything but the top. And so we haven't been able to use him after that because he doesn't want to repeat the process. Let's say this is an employee you're hiring, and he needs to have work permits or whatever. And he's working at an industry like aviation, where he needs to work in an airport. And this is kind of where it gets interesting because the devil is in the details. If you're working on an airport, you need to have a police officer in pretty much every country in Europe that validates who you are and that everything's okay. It's extended background checks. In many places, if you haven't shown records of what you were doing for a period of 30 days or more, your application gets automatically rejected. That's the law. It's the norm. That's what the police officer will do when they review it. Police departments will not allow you to access their system to automatically have an API do something. They will want this manual, right? And it will take them weeks to come up with a conclusion. It doesn't matter if you want to get time to hire quicker. This is just facts, period. And this is an actual customer story. And so what they did is that sometimes there were incidents of errors in this application, and so they needed to wait for 3 or 4 weeks, and then they came back and it told them, there's an error, do it again. And that causes somebody not being able to work at the workplace with all sorts of contingencies that came with that. But now they can do stuff like check if a photo is approved or not. And AI, you can put this manual in your ChatGPT and just ask it, is this photo okay? And it's not. Like the background isn't plain, the head is turned, he looks like he's smiling. There's a ton of stuff that's not valid for all sorts of photo purposes. It can also check if the application is missing data, like somebody wasn't there for 30 days. And if it is, instead of sending it to the police officer, it will send it to the people in HR, this person, letting them know you need to upload this thing, update it, whatever it is, before it goes in. This is like a really specific example, right? Probably most of you don't connect with it, but probably most of you work in an industry where you have those specific examples in whatever it is that you do, and you're like, it needs to do that. And you're not going to go out and buy a whole system that just does this. That's like, a sledgehammer on a nail or something. And so there is I like this example because these are the ones that are mostly used. It's endless of small things that are out there. It can also be used for general things like any type of employee request. You can screen candidates. Tech is already out there now that somebody applies for a job, and seconds later you'll see the score they have for their CV. You'll see the score that they have for all of their educational records and cover letters that they're sending in. You can even have them, like I have here in the product, if you just opening up a live demo here, if you have screening, you could literally have a job like this. And seconds after people come in, you'll just see everyone's score. You can click anyone here, just as a random person. And you'll see a report like this getting generated in seconds that just tells you the score, the reasoning for the score, custom criteria, points they get for each part, top interview questions, whatever you want. And maybe Perry wants something else than other people in the room. So whatever you're building, you can build this already. And tech can also be used to do things you're not allowed to do. Tech could already be used to hire people automatically, fully autonomous. But policies and laws don't allow you to do that, right? So even if you have the tech to do stuff, you have to configure it in a way that what's allowed to do. So even a Domino's workplace, which is one of our customers, for example, they would be fine with just hiring somebody for their first job. They don't really have an educational, it's kind of like the first person through the door rather than a really high qualification for somebody doing pizzas for the first time, right? But they're not allowed to do a poster in the wall, you just scan it, apply, and you automatically start getting on board. You can start on Monday. Tech is there, but policies don't seem to allow it, so far at least. And then there's this part, which is governance, right? And this is so many times overlooked. So all of you raised your hands using ChatGPT, right? All of your orgs are probably doing it. You have no idea what your people are putting in there, right? They could, somebody with the right access could download all of the PIA data you can think of, all the personal data of a company, they could put it in there. Some of you probably have a better structure than others in terms of is it being used to train the models or not? Is it hosted in Europe? That kind of stuff. Make sure to get those questions right. There's common checklists that we and others share about it. But governance is huge. And when you use it in a tool like this, you can control what the prompt is, right? This is the prompt that's being used. You can decide what the prompt is. You can decide if you put in PII data or not, or what information of a form that somebody filled out goes into this. You can see what every single prompt did. Every single prompt, you'll get a list of it, and you can know whether you are, if it's not right for some reason, you can just go over it, see if you agree with it or not. That's governance, it's control of it. You can map up everything you have in terms of processes in one place and actually see what you as an org do. How do you do it? Who does what? Who is approving what, when and why? And if somebody goes or leaves or whatever, you have that mapped up. It's way more clear. There's all sorts of things. So that governance part in the age of AI is what is coming. And it's not just in HR, it's in every single industry that's out there. And so what I fundamentally believe what's going to happen now is instead of us hiring people to do tasks and certain jobs at work, we're going to be hiring people that are going to be mapping up and building workflows that tackle those tasks with AI embedded within it. That is what's coming. It doesn't matter if it's employee requests, or if it's HR processes, or if it's manager requests, or if it's something related to sales. You're going to have an org that has somebody governing and controlling these processes with AI in the middle. And they're going to become so much more effective in how they do it. And this is already happening across the board, like trillions of dollars being spent in investing in companies that are building technologies that can do this. And this is what's coming. And it's coming for every single team and industry. And so this person, this is you. This is you and your team and how you kind of, like, who are you? How do you do these things? How do they work? How do you manage them? And the job will change. It's already changing. It's not like you can't just expect to go and solve these circles manually each at a time. You have the knowledge of how it gets done, you and your team. You know how to do it. You know what's the best way. You can start to rethink how it should get done with AI. If it's a chat-based thing, you help it with. If it's part of a workflow, it's part of a system. But this is the way you change it. And you kind of start eliminating a lot of manual tasks, just process by process. I mean, our customers, they're saying that wait, here I dropped out for some second. Our customers are saying that the biggest benefit that they're getting is basically the productivity part. They're seeing the productivity part go up. They're seeing the admin reduction, team satisfaction, reduced time to hire, employee satisfaction. But this part is what I think is pretty interesting. This is a survey we did for all of our customers. A third of them have already shaved off more than 25% of their admin time. And then you have a little bit, like, out of that third, maybe 1/3 of those, 50% or more. The others that are in the lower bars, in the 0.5% to 25%, they're in the early stages of starting. So they've taken maybe one workflow, they've automated something, they see it work, they're about to take on the next or whatever it is that makes sense. Most of them start with like low-hanging fruits, easy to get started, and then it gets more complex. But this is kind of how people move up the ladder until you see 25, 50% or more of time actually saved, productivity increased by the customers. And then coming to closing really soon, but just like, I would love to hear this as well. Like you're all using chat-based AI, but in your org, like really adapting it across the organization, this is kind of an interesting one. Across your organization, how many of you like feel like you're like top 10% using AI across the board, really kind of ruling it, proud to share use cases with the rest of us? Okay, there's some of us here. For those of you who aren't using AI like fully across it, what's the main reason why you're not doing it? I'll share the actual stats from our customers and others we've spoken to. Like, why haven't you done it? Like, yeah, sorry.
Oh, hang on. We have AV telling me I need to run a mic to you, so he wants me to lose some weight.
Hi, I'm Gail. I work from a scale-up management consultancy, and it's me and a part-time person doing everything for 70-odd people. And I feel, ironically, that it's time that's stopping me. We're all on board. We've just launched our AI program on Friday. All brilliant, but I'm actually busy doing the day-to-day, and this has been brilliant because it's given me lots of ideas to take away, but it's time. Just thinking out what I need to do.
That's a huge one. Other reasons? Can I see some hands in the air? You can, yeah.
Kate Griffiths-Lambeth. I'm a fractional CPO, mainly financial services, charities and education. Main reasons the organisations I'm working with are not really adopting AI is confidentiality and ethics.
Yeah, confidentiality and ethics, that's a common one as well. Can we see some more in the room? Yeah, they're in the back as well.
Can we get a mic to this guy? Hang on.
You're a fast runner, Hung. That's impressive.
Yeah, my name's Parvinder. I work in the UK-India Tech Corridor. In principle, the platforms like Lovable sound very, good to use, but when you get down to use them, they're very cumbersome. And for a non-tech guy, it becomes very difficult. So eventually, you do have to call out for help.
Yeah, it's a good observation. I would argue that they get easier to use. I have a 12-year-old that was able to build something that helps her with math. So So I think like if you want to build simple applications like that can be built with a prompt or two, I think most people can do it. If you want to build something like really complex, like a tool that you want to sell to others or stuff like that, I think it gets a lot more cumbersome. But I still believe it's really lowered the threshold for a lot of things to get built for a lot of people. Like our customers, we asked them, timing was a huge one, but in this survey, like budgets is a huge one, right? Like getting the budget to do this. Like you want to do it, you're not really sure what tools to do or how to start, but you're like, how do you get how do you convince people to do it? And the best reason to solve that is really to just make a compelling ROI case. Like, how are you doing this today? How much time does it take? How much cost is there? If you do it differently, how will that change? And that's the difference. And that is really what this is all about. There are other reasons, like there's fragmented systems, there's data quality access, there's compliance and legal, there's lack of use cases. We've heard things like ethics. There's all sorts of things that have come up. And time is huge. And like for time on our end, like we've done a ton of work with employers where they just pick whatever process they want and our team builds it for them. We have like a catalog of whatever works and we build it for them. A lot of times that's for more of the complex processes. So just like with Lovable, you mentioned, like if you want to build like a parental leave process, you can do that. You can go and try it out later today if you want to you'll build it before the end of the day. If you want to build like a fully fledged onboarding process that integrates with 10 products, some of them like ERP systems, whatever, you're going to need some help, either from your IT team with your integrations or our team at some point. And but I would say like start with something simple that you can control, like filling out a form into a joke or an internal event, and then build from there. And I do like just to kind of remind the pyramid again, like this is already starting here, right? Like we're going to make it even more simple to do this, like with every single deployment we do. That's our goal. But it's already gotten so much more simple than before. And even like products like Lovable are 10 times easier to use now than they were like 8 months ago. So it's just going to increase. And my favorite story is actually this slide here that we have from one of our customers. This is a woman called Emmeline. She's from a hotel chain with like 30, 40 hotels in the Nordics. And what they do is she explained to us when she was starting out that this is the workflow she wanted. So she had this sketch and she had mapped up this workflow. I mean, I can't tell what this is, but this is like a beautiful sketch here. And she took on the challenge of trying to build it. And this is her earlier this year describing to a full audience like how she actually built her first workflows, saving her hundreds of hours, like adding AI into, she's never been build a workflow before, never seen a workflow builder. And it was very empowering to just hear her story there. I think we have it on recording somewhere. So that's what I wanted to talk about. I'm happy to take questions, talk for long enough. If you want to just follow us or something afterwards, we're doing a ton of LinkedIn tips. You can try this product for free. You don't have to buy it. You can just go online and try it. You can meet with our team if you want to tell us what's there. There's plenty of us in the room. Maybe just our team members, if you can raise your hands in the air. We have Danielle there. We have Brahe, who flew in from New York for this event, so he's still awake. And then we have Christine over here. So please talk to me or anyone on our team if you want to learn more later. But I think that's it for me for now. Hung, if you're here in the room. Yeah.
I got a question, actually.
Yeah, bring it on.
What's the argument to have, and I totally get what the gentleman said there, it's like, and the lady at the front there, maxed out, it's kind of an irony. We want to do it, but you know what? We don't actually have the time to learn how to get faster. It's like how do we switch the cars when the wheels of the car when we're driving the car? Is there an argument to say, like, there needs to be a specialist in department to look at automation? And have you seen that within your customer base? Like, who's actually doing the work in your customer base? Is it actually the HR generalist, or is it somebody who's seconded to do it full time?
We've actually, I love it. We've actually been analyzing this. So we made a list of all of our customers. We list of all the champions within and who's building it. The reality is there isn't a single theme. So we have teams where there's like a young HR person working with a more senior HR person. The younger one is kind of more tech savvy. He's doing all the work. We have a company that has somebody in IT involved that's doing it. We have a company that's somebody that was having a hard time building PowerPoints, and she's now like an expert in the system. So we're kind of seeing the whole thing across. I would, however, say that if people don't make the time, if nobody in the org makes the time, nothing will happen, right? And so you either need to, because let's say you have, all of you probably have something in your mind on what you want to build. And let's say you want to start. Like you you can describe what you want to do and how you're doing it today. But then once you've done it, you have to allocate time to build that, right? And you can either do it yourself, you can have a consultant help you out build it, you can hire someone or have our team or whatever. But like that, somebody needs to do that part of the time. And that you need to do for every single workflow. So that's often the tricky part. Like you need to break it into smaller pieces and tackle one at a time. But the reality is, if you spend 1 hour of time doing something, you could save you like that task forever, or 10. And so it's like once people get that, they start to understand like, oh, okay, this is actually my best time spent, because this actually saves up the reason why I'm always busy.
Yeah, perfect. And that kind of connects very nicely with Perry's earlier comment about oscillating between, old and new. We've got to kind of get into that rhythm rather than just try and optimizing the old right now, because we can get very, very fast, let's say, very efficient at a very clunky process. Wouldn't we better get a better process? Okay, any more questions, folks? Yeah, this guy here. Go on.
I've got a question more specifically on reliance on AI. Right now, I've attended several of the CIPD events where they discuss, AI and the integration of AI. And interesting thing is, I was speaking to consultants, HR consultants, and some of them started talking about the LLMs they were using. Okay. And they were using it for a variety of different tasks: leadership coaching and mentoring, performance management, so on and so forth. And what was interesting was that they spoke about, I use, for example, ChatGPT to help me with leadership coaching and mentoring, but sometimes the output isn't exactly how I would want it to be, and obviously they were alluding to hallucinations, okay? And the question was, okay, then, so if that happens, what do you do next? And their response was, I just check it on another LLM, right? As opposed to, basically incorporating their own human perspective or their human contribution. Now, for me, my question more is, what is your personal view on the reliance of AI? Because you've already asked the question earlier, like, how many people in this room use AI? Mm-hmm. And pretty much everyone has put their hand up to having used it on a frequent occasion. So where do you see this going forward?
I think it's a great question. The reality is AIs can hallucinate, and it really depends on how you ask questions and what context it has and everything. So one response here is like, it really matters how you use it and structure it. If you put AI as part of a workflow, you are really configuring what goes into that workflow, what comes out of it. You can structure the outputs. And you don't have to, again, put it on full autopilot when you start. You can literally go and say, let's run this 100 times, see the request, and I'm going to manually overview this. And then you can do audits, for example, on a monthly by monthly basis. You'll see the entire thing. You'll always see the input, the output, the data that goes in. And that's really how AI gets better. I would also argue, like, in terms of like a misunderstanding relating to AI. Like, AI is what is called a probabilistic model. It is trying to tell you the most probable answer to any question it gets at any point. It is not a calculator. It is a probabilistic model, just like anyone in this room is. If you ask anyone in this room a question, they're going to give you the most probable answer to that question. Now, some things that I've seen customers do that is pretty interesting is when you look at the sum of data and curves. We, for example, worked with a customer that had thousands of people that applied for a job, and the recruiters had given them ratings. They were able to build a workflow and a model and, run the same candidates after they'd already figured out who got hired and everything. And they had permission on it. Run those same candidates through the funnel, see how the AI would score those candidates, and compare it to the actual recruiters. And the curve looked almost identical, which is great because the recruiters seemed to be doing a good job. But the AI, it was kind of weird. The AI did the same thing. There were a few deviations. In all the scenarios that we looked at, those deviations were the humans getting it wrong. It was the AI finding out that somebody didn't have a work permit, they thought they had it, or whatever. So I think it's like, it's not going to be, it is a probabilistic model, but if you configure it the right way, you can get amazing result. Another thing is, when you do AI as part of a workflow, you're controlling in such depth what it specifically does. And the likelihood of it hallucinating is way lower than if you just say, who is Chloe? Or who is Christian? Or who is Hung? Or whatever. And or put in a full paper or something you copy pasted from online and ask it. So there are ways of getting better responses from AI, and this is one of them. Hopefully, yeah. There's a bunch of questions here. Hung with a mic. Yeah, sorry.
Thanks. Hung's looking at me nervously. So I've worked for a company that's owned by Microsoft for the last 4 years, and I was the HR Disrupt AI lead. Building out use cases across the employee life cycle. And I have a request for you and for every other vendor in this space, is to really go into a bit more detail around the importance to building a responsible AI governance framework. Because what you're putting up here in front of us looks amazing, okay? And the reality is these automated decision-making processes can have an adverse impact on people. And we need to put better scaffolding around the systems we use to ensure that every AI use case is transparent, explainable. And I know you touched upon it in this session, but I would love to see this become a core part of any business development offering, event, because it's so important for society that the people who are designing these systems demonstrate that they themselves are taking the right ethical approach as opposed to just paying lip service to it.
Yeah. No, and I don't need a request for it. That's literally what we're trying to do here. Like, if you add an AI agent anywhere in our system, anywhere, you will see exactly where it's being used, how it's being used, the inputs you control, the outputs you control, you can review it. There's no decision ever where this is put in where you can't control it. The other part is also like, how can you tell people what it should do and what it shouldn't do? And we've tried through events that we do, and I even have some slides on it here, to tell people like what is allowed, what isn't allowed. And there are some policies in place. I can show you a couple of slides that I had here, although I could have shown them earlier. I mean, whatever you are building, like for me, I think you should use your judgment and never automate your responsibility. You also have an employer that has like guidelines and ethics. The products that you're using, in terms of like OpenAI and others, have their own usage policies, and you have laws in different countries. And you even have like, for example, OpenAI, they have stricter policies than other models. Like you can't automate a fully high-stake decision. Like for example, you can't offboard people, fire people, or hire people fully automated. Even though the tech allows you to do it, you have to have a human oversight and people in place. And best practice is shown.
Yeah, but we should be talking about the implications for HR leaders when the EU AI Act becomes enforceable next year. We should be talking about the Robo AI Act in California and what that means for HR leaders. Because even though we can automate and we can make huge productivity and efficiency savings, we need to do it in the right way. And I think there's a burden on HR leaders, and it's going to become really apparent when we go into next 2026, the amount of work that is required to be compliant to all this legislation, especially if you're in a global company, because the risk of getting it wrong can be huge for organizations. And I remember on our own AI journey 2 years ago, when we went to our general counsel, our DPO teams, the amount of no's we got when we wanted to experiment on AI use cases using personal data was huge. It took us so much collaboration with legal and DPO to get across the line. And we are competing for budget. You know, for HR leaders going in to look for budget for AI use cases, we're competing against the functional leads from legal, from marketing. We need to show, I think we have a higher burden of proof that our AI use cases are safe, are acceptable. And I think that's something we could really...
And I don't disagree with you. I do still feel that if I compare this year to last year or the year before, like, I feel that a lot more people are starting to do a lot more with AI and really seeing some results with some interesting projects. And so it's shifting. I don't agree that people should do it responsibly every time. But I think there's also a lot more know-how on how you can do that.